I'm Emma, a 19-year-old college student from Michigan. Life hasn't been easy. My parents divorced when I was 14, and I've lived with my mom since. Last year, my dad passed away from cancer, which was really hard for me because we were very close. He left me some money in his will, which I could only access once I turned 19. That day finally came this year, and I was hopeful about what it could mean for my future. But then something unexpected happened, something I'm still trying to make sense of. One afternoon, my stepdad, Scott, who's in his mid-30s and has been married to my mom for 6 years, called me into his room. We've never had a great relationship, but I always tried to be polite. Unfortunately, he didn't always treat me the same way. "Emma, I need to talk to you about something important," he said. I felt uneasy. I could tell it wasn't going to be good news. "What is it?" I asked, trying to keep calm. He brought up the money my dad had left me. "I think you should give it to your stepbrother, Tyler. He needs it for college," he said. I was shocked. "Wait, what? You're asking me to give my inheritance to Tyler? He wants to go to college just like I do, but I can't believe you'd ask me to just give up my dad's money." Scott didn't seem bothered by my reaction. "Emma, don't be silly. You don't need that money. Tyler needs it more than you do." I took a deep breath and stood my ground. "I'm sorry, Scott, but the answer is no." I could feel my heart racing. He didn't like my answer. "Don't push me, Emma," he warned, his tone sharp. "Calm down, Scott. I answered you honestly," I said, trying to keep the peace. "Saying no isn't to disrespect you. I just have to set boundaries here. If saying no makes you mad, maybe you need to think about that." The tension between us was thick. I added, "Let's try to be civil. Don't forget you're a guest in this house too." Before he could say anything else, I turned and walked away, my heart racing. Honestly, I wasn't surprised by Scott's behavior. He always acted like he deserved more than he did, and I figured he'd ask me for the money at some point. You might wonder where my mom was during all this. Well, that's another story. My mom, Angela, never seemed to notice any of Scott's bad sides. No matter what he did, she stood by him, almost like she was under a spell. I knew she loved me, but I didn't want to ruin her view of him, so I tried to get along with Scott for her sake. It was funny, though. I was one of the youngest in the house, but I often felt like I was the most mature. My mom was out of town, which is why she wasn't around to step in. If she had been home, I'm sure she would have been furious at Scott for making this request. That's probably why he felt like he could try to boss me around now, thinking he could push me since my mom wasn't there. But he didn't know that I saw right through his plan. As I walked out, I could hear Scott behind me, yelling and calling me a bad sister for not wanting to give Tyler the money. That wasn't fair. I didn't want to help Tyler, but I didn't want to be used for my inheritance. I wasn't responsible for Tyler's choices or his future. Scott and Tyler both had this sneaky way of planning things together, like cartoon characters scheming, but I still couldn't figure out who was the bigger troublemaker. "Hey, don't walk away while I'm talking to you," Scott shouted after me. "You need to listen and do what's right. Can you give me one good reason for that?" I shot back, feeling my frustration build up. Our argument woke up Tyler, who walked over, looking a little unsure. "Tyler, tell Emma what we talked about earlier," Scott said. Tyler hesitated, then found his confidence. "Oh, right, the inheritance money," he said. "Yeah, Emma, Dad and I were talking, and we think you should give us the money for something important." "What important thing?" I asked, feeling my heart pound. "You know, the business," he replied. "What business?" I said, confused. "You told me this money was for college tuition." I felt anger and disbelief rising. They were trying to push me into giving up what was rightfully mine. This wasn't just about money. It was about standing up for myself and being respected. "Emma, we're family. We need to help each other," Tyler said. "College is expensive, and I don't want to put all that on Mom." "If you could just be a little generous," Tyler started, but I cut him off. "Generous? You want me to just hand over my dad's hard-earned money because you think I don't need it? That's not how this works, Tyler. I have plans for that money. It's not just lying around for anyone to take." Scott jumped in. "Emma, think about how we're all struggling. We're family, and family helps each other, right?" I shook my head, feeling frustrated. Family doesn't just take without giving back, Scott. I'm not a cash machine. I don't owe you or Tyler anything. As I stood there, I realized how much I needed to stand up for myself. My dad had always fought for what he believed in, and I wanted to honor him by doing the same. I wasn't going to let Scott or Tyler walk all over me. I took a deep breath to stay calm. Look, I get that college is important, and I do want the best for both of you. But I have my own future to think about, and I can't give up my plans for you. Scott looked shocked, his mouth open, while Tyler shuffled awkwardly next to him. I felt stronger as I went on. I'm not saying I won't help someday, but right now I need to focus on my own education and plans. I hope you can understand that. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I needed to be true to myself and my dad's memory. Scott and Tyler might be upset, but I was done being the person they turned to whenever they needed something. I deserved to have my own dreams, and I'd fight for them. With that, I turned and walked away, my heart pounding, but my head held high. I didn't look back, though Scott's sharp tone echoed in my mind as I replayed our earlier conversation. Tyler chimed in, trying to sound eager. Oh, yes, I need the money for college. It's for me. Thanks. His response felt fake, almost like he'd practiced it. I couldn't help but roll my eyes. Nice try, Tyler, but the answer is still no, I said, standing firm. Why not, Emma? Scott asked, his voice edged with annoyance. I crossed my arms, feeling the tension grow. We'll see about that, I replied, refusing to back down. The rest of the evening was thick with silence, the air filled with unspoken words. Scott was known for his silly pranks and attempts to get on my nerves, but this felt different, more serious, almost desperate. I was starting to see just how immature and selfish Scott really was. I didn't want to tell my mom right away. I wanted to handle this myself, especially after overhearing that strange conversation earlier. Emma, stop playing games. You need to be an adult and do the right thing, Scott said, raising his voice. And you think the right thing is giving away my money? I shot back, shocked. Are you serious, Scott? Maybe I should tell Mom about this. Don't tell Angela anything, he said, his tone suddenly dark. Why not? She's my mom, and she deserves to know how I'm being treated. He shrugged, like my concerns didn't matter. Do you think she really cares? I'm just trying to help you, Emma. If you bring this up, she'll get upset with you for wasting her time and being selfish. Well, that's a chance I'm willing to take, I said, standing firm. I'm warning you, don't tell her, he replied, his voice angrier than I'd ever heard. It seemed like he was hiding something big, especially about that business idea Tyler had mentioned. They probably thought I was too clueless to understand, but I was determined to find out what they were up to. Later, I called my mom. Hey, Mom, how are you? I'm good, baby. How about you? She replied, sounding cheerful. Not so great, Mom. Something feels off with Scott and Tyler, especially Scott. He's acting really strange. Oh, Emma, don't be dramatic. I know you don't really like him, but he's not that bad. Mom, he asked me for the inheritance money. What? No, he wouldn't do that, she said, sounding shocked. He did, Mom. Both him and Tyler. They actually demanded it. She was quiet for a moment. I don't believe it. Scott wouldn't do that, she said, still in denial. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. I know you love him, but this is real. He said it was for Tyler's education, but I feel like something suspicious is going on. He even got mad when I said I'd tell you. I don't know, honey. Maybe I need more proof, she said, hesitantly. Don't worry, Mom. I'll get you all the proof you need, I promised, feeling more determined than ever. Even if she wasn't ready to believe me just yet, I knew I had to stay alert and keep watching. It felt like Scott had put some kind of spell on my mom, clouding her judgment. But I was still determined to figure out what he and Tyler were up to. That night, I couldn't sleep, so I went to the family computer, hoping to find some clue about what Scott was doing. When I logged in, I noticed something odd. Scott had forgotten to log out of his email account. That was a huge mistake. As I started going through his emails, my heart began to race. What I found shocked me. Scott had been emailing a woman named Laura, and the messages weren't just friendly. They were flirty and very inappropriate. My stomach twisted. Was he having an affair? I quickly jotted down some notes on what I found. But the next email was even worse. It was about Scott's plan to divorce my mom and run away with Laura. They mentioned getting a lot of money soon from a business venture, but it sounded shady. Scott hadn't put anything obviously illegal in the emails, but he was reckless enough to leave this evidence right there. I knew I had to find out more. Maybe Tyler could tell me something if I got him to slip up. The next day, I approached Tyler, trying to act casual. "Hey, Tyler." "Hi, Emma. You seem cheerful today," he replied with a smile, and I almost felt a little bad for him. "I wanted to ask you a few things," I said, turning serious. "I've been thinking about what you and Scott said, and I might actually consider giving you the money." "Really? That's great. I'll tell him," Tyler replied eagerly. "Hold on," I interrupted, raising my hand. "Before I give you this money, I need to know it's really for your college, right?" "Oh, yeah, definitely for my tuition," he stammered, looking a bit nervous. "All right, but I need to know you're serious about this," I continued, watching him closely. "Yes, of course. I'm very serious," Tyler insisted, but his eyes darted around. "And what about Laura? Is she serious too?" I asked, wanting to see his reaction. "Laura? Who's Laura?" he asked, genuinely confused. "Oh, she's, a student advisor at the college," I said, watching his face carefully. Just then, I heard footsteps, and my heart sank. Scott had entered the room, and I could feel the tension rise. "I don't appreciate you questioning my son," Scott said in a low, threatening tone. "I wasn't interrogating him," I replied calmly. "I was just asking how my money would be used." I answered defensively. "Well, once someone gives money, it's not theirs anymore, so it's really none of your business." "Is that how you talk to someone who's thinking of giving you money?" I shot back, trying to keep my voice steady. "You're not thinking about it. You're giving me that money. If you don't, I'll kick you out," Scott threatened, leaving me stunned. "Dad, this wasn't part of the deal," Tyler said, looking shocked. "Quiet. I'm the parent and I make the rules. If you don't hand over that inheritance money, you can leave," Scott insisted. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I had caught them in their web of lies, and little did Scott know, I'd been recording the entire conversation. I shot him an angry look and walked out, locking myself in my room, my heart racing. I finally had proof that Scott was trying to manipulate me and take my inheritance. I knew I wouldn't let him get away with it. Determined, I started gathering every piece of evidence I could find against Scott. It felt like I was a detective on a TV show, putting all the clues together. I collected voice recordings, screenshots of his messages with Laura, and every detail I could think of. I was preparing for the storm ahead. After pulling everything together, I called my mom. "Hello, Mom." "Hey, love. How are you?" she replied, sounding cheerful. "Mom, are you sitting down?" I asked, feeling the weight of what I was about to share. "What's wrong?" "I have some really bad news, and you're not going to like it." I took a deep breath and began to tell her everything I'd uncovered about Scott and Tyler. At first, she kept denying it, unable to believe what I was saying. "He wouldn't do that," she insisted, shaking her head. Finally, I played the recording I'd made. As she listened, I saw her expression change, her eyes wide with shock. "Why would he say those things to you? Why would he do that to me?" she asked, hurt and confused. "Because he's not who you thought he was, Mom. I'm sorry, but you married someone who doesn't care about us. This is terrible. I can't believe I left you alone with those two." "Absolutely not. I'm coming home right now." "Have you locked your doors?" I asked, my heart pounding. "Are you ready, Mom?" "Yes, I am," she replied. "I'm going to make sure that man regrets ever messing with us. He won't even want to show his face in public when I'm done with him. That's the spirit, Mom. Hurry home so we can make a plan." She arrived a few hours later, rushing straight to my room. We hugged tightly, tears streaming down our faces. We cried together, letting out the weight of everything we'd been holding in. I could see this news was hard for her, but seeing her angry and ready to act gave me hope. We talked for hours, going over plans, our fears, and what we hoped to do. By the end of the night, we had a solid plan. Scott wouldn't know what hit him. Over the next few days, Scott seemed confused about why my mom had returned early and was ignoring him. He acted overly cheerful, trying to keep up a fake innocence. But my mom saw right through him. She decided to take action, especially after seeing the shady messages about his so-called business. She hired a private investigator, feeling sure that Scott wasn't planning anything legal with that money. She was furious. How could a husband and father be so cruel and sneaky? When the investigator shared his findings, my mom was stunned. I'm speechless. What did they find? I asked, eager to know. It turns out he's planning to use a laundromat to launder money, she said, shocked. It's an old trick. Wow, that's not all, is it? I pressed, feeling more curious. No, it's not, she continued, her voice filled with anger. This woman, Laura, the one he's cheating on me with, has a criminal record for drug-related activities. She's been arrested several times for trying to sell illegal substances. It wouldn't be surprising if their business involves drugs, too. That's unbelievable. I would have never expected this. It's like I'm finally seeing who he really is, I said. When are we going to confront him, Mom? I asked, feeling adrenaline rush through me. Right now. Follow my lead, she said, her eyes fierce. Wait, let me grab my camera, I said, determined to record everything. We made our way to the living room, where we found Scott and Tyler huddled together, discussing their shady plans. I felt a rush of anticipation as we prepared to confront them. We'll use this as a cover for our business, Scott was saying quietly. Just act like you don't know anything and serve the customers. Hey, everyone. We're just going over Tyler's college application, he said, noticing us and trying to cover. My mom stepped into the room confidently. Cut the act, Scott. We know everything. What do you mean? Scott's fake innocence started to fade. Your little game is over. Smile for the camera, my mom added, holding up her phone to record. Get that out of my face, you spoiled brat. Scott snapped, his anger rising. Scott, we know it all, I said firmly. Do you have any idea how many years you'd get in jail for what you're planning? I don't know what you're talking about, he replied, trying to act clueless. Well, maybe we should call Laura and see what she has to say, my mom suggested, smiling slyly. You two think you're so smart? Laura is just a friend, Scott said, panic in his voice. Oh, really? The photos say otherwise, I shot back. Who even uses emails to cheat? It's so obvious. How dare you go through my things? Scott shouted, clearly angry. No, Scott, how dare you threaten my daughter for money that isn't yours? How dare you threaten to kick her out of my house, involve your son in this mess, and plan to use her money for illegal activities? My mom fired back, her voice shaking with rage. Scott stood there, speechless, his confidence fading. Nothing to say now, huh? I challenged, feeling stronger than ever. We know everything, and we're going to make sure you pay for it. Get that camera out of my face, Scott shouted, but my mom didn't budge. Suddenly, he lunged at me, anger blazing in his eyes. My heart raced as I stepped back, trying to keep my distance. So now you're attacking my daughter? You really are begging for jail time, my mom yelled, her voice steady but furious. You don't know anything, Scott spat, but his tone had turned desperate. Tell that to the police, who should be here any second, I replied, feeling a surge of defiance. Police? Scott's face shifted from anger to fear. Yes, the police, my mom said. Your behavior today just convinced me to call them. Right then, we heard police sirens approaching our neighborhood. I had never seen Scott look so scared before. He'd always acted like he was smarter than everyone, but when he heard those sirens, his face went pale. Please, Angela, you don't have to do this. I can explain everything, he begged, sounding desperate. Save it for the judge. You cockroach, my mom replied coldly. You disgust me. And Tyler, don't think you're getting off easy either. Both of you are about to get what you deserve for treating my daughter and me this way. As the police cars pulled up outside, I felt a huge wave of relief. Justice was finally here. Scott and Tyler's world was falling apart, and I could hardly believe it was happening. When the officers stepped onto our porch, I felt a mix of fear and triumph. My mom and I shared a look, knowing we had each other's backs. "Let's end this once and for all," I whispered to her, bracing myself for what was coming. I might have been young, but I understood enough to know that Scott needed to pay for what he'd done. One of Scott's friends tried to defend him, saying, "Michelle, don't you think this is a bit much?" "Actually, it's not enough," my mom shot back, standing strong. We'd even set up a live stream, and as we started it, my heart raced. "How's it going?" I asked, nervous but excited. "We've got over 4,200 people watching," she said with a grin. "This is going to be big." With everyone watching, my mom declared, and in case it wasn't clear, I want a divorce. The chat exploded with comments and reactions as the shocking news spread. Over 4,200 people saw our family drama unfold live. Soon, it hit local newspapers and tabloids, turning it into a public spectacle. It felt surreal, standing in the middle of this chaos with my ex-stepfather and his son, but there was a deep satisfaction in watching Scott's downfall. He lost his job, friends, and even family members who refused to speak to him anymore. As the legal process began, he faced serious charges for all his schemes. If the judge found him guilty, he could spend up to 21 years in prison. It was hard to believe it was really happening, that Scott would finally pay for everything he'd done. The police also found Laura, who'd been hiding while all of this was blowing up. She was facing the same charges, and I felt relieved knowing she wouldn't be able to hurt anyone else. Life for my mom and me was finally looking brighter. All that we'd been through brought us closer together. On weekends, we'd relax on the patio, drinks in hand, laughing at how foolish and cruel Scott had been. It felt freeing to share these moments, our bond stronger than ever. "Good riddance," I said with a smile, raising my glass. "Good riddance indeed," my mom echoed, her eyes shining with strength. We had overcome so much, and I knew we were ready for whatever came next.